Of KDKR programming do not necessarily reflect the views of this station, its management, or staff.
Prudent Money with Bob Brooks is sponsored by the Prudent Money Foundation on 91.3.
Well, are you letting fear get in the way of your financial goals? Today we're going to take a look. Stay tuned for Prudent Money. Good afternoon and welcome to the Prudent Money Radio Show. I'm your host, Bob Brooks. Thank you so much for joining me today. You know I do appreciate it. Well, today I'm not taking any calls. However, if you do have a question for me, I want to invite you to the website, www.prudentmoney.com, and make sure you go to the Ask Bob section and send a question in. And while you're at the website, we've fine-tuned it a little bit, rerouted some sections of it. Let me know what you think. That's all at prudentmoney.com. And if there's anything that you want us to write about, post about, or anything like that, let us know. We want to make sure that we're posting and keeping up with content that is useful for you and that will help you become a better steward of what God has given you. So if you've ever written a book, at least this has always been my experience. I've written one, and I'm working on a second one. And the idea that starts in your head kind of plays out in your head. You jot some notes down throughout the days, and you get to the point to where you think, I'm really ready to write this book. But you've been thinking and contemplating the material and the content all this time, and at some point it makes sense that you pull the trigger. And so as I was thinking about this, as far as the radio show goes, as far as this new book that I'm writing goes, it came out to one question. What is the main reason that you may not be achieving your financial goals? And that's really one of the big questions that this book does present. Why aren't you achieving your financial goals? And, I've gone through all types of reasons in my mind from the standpoint of taking too much risk, not taking enough risk, not having a risk strategy, not having a plan. I mean, there's a lot of different types of pieces to the puzzle that go to answer that question. One thing, though, that all the reasons seem to have in common is simply this. A type of fear. Now, fear comes in many shapes and sizes, and it can be complex. It can be really pretty simple if you break it down, why you might be afraid to make a decision or do something. But it's definitely at the root of just about every problem that ends up getting in your way of being successful. So let me give you an example. Let's say that you have an investment account sitting in an old 401k plan at a former job, or maybe just an old plan that's sitting in an investment brokerage account that you don't have anybody watching it, you don't have anything happening with it. You've kind of gone through the roller coaster last year. This year is up a little bit, which at least the roller coaster has stopped. But you yet have made back your money. So you're thinking about these accounts, whether it's 401k plan. The bottom line is you don't really have direct access, or you haven't given somebody direct access to the account. Now you need to move it. The reasons are pretty simple. You don't want an investment account just sitting by itself, not under an investment strategy or being watched and being managed. You don't want to be in a situation where you have the opportunity to select just about any type of strategy and not take advantage of that opportunity, because once you move it from the 401k plan, or you move it from another IRA to one that brings more options for you, you don't want to miss all that. But yet there's something that keeps you stuck. It's a hesitancy, and it usually starts with the decision to make a call to a financial advisor. and you could have done your due diligence. You could have found a couple of different advisors to call, maybe start the interview process, but you can't even get there. Chances are that you're letting another fear of some kind hold you back. But it all comes back to the fear. But the good news is, in my example, we'll call it just a minor fear that you can get past at some point, and you look at the downsides of not having the money managed or the money looked at or watched over or invested per your specific risk level, and you look at those cons and you think, that's a little bit big. And finally, you set up the time with the financial advisor. Now, what ends up happening once you get to that point is that you start going through the process with the financial advisor. The advisor takes you through a question and answer, a series of questions and answers, and talks about what you want, what's your end game, and what does retirement look like. You have all the goals set up, but yet you can't pull the trigger. You can't commit. You can't make that decision to go forward. Now, that could be a lot of different reasons, a lot of different things that you might fear. And we are going to cover that here in just a few seconds. But there's definitely a fear that is holding you back, that's keeping you from initiating what the advisor feels is the right move for you from a risk standpoint. And so what ends up happening is that you kind of disappear from the process, and you'll make your decision next week. Next week will come. You'll find a reason not to make it. The next week will come, and now you're 2 or 3 months away. Then you're 6 months away, and now you don't feel the urgency that you felt 6 months ago, and it just ends up paralyzing you from making a decision. Or it could be a situation where you're finally going to make that jump. You're going to get an education on how money works. You're going to dig into the details like you've never dug into details before. This is not like you. This money has been a tough thing for you to understand, a tough subject, like it is for most people. And you spend all this time. Well, you add that to the procrastination. So the procrastination kicks in. You're going to do it next week. But you sit down, you finally start trying to understand, and you see how tough it is. You understand some things you don't understand, and then it just kind of leaves you at a place where you don't know what to do. All of this is driven by some type of fear. You could also, prior to going to talk to the financial advisor, you could probably feel embarrassed. And I see this a lot, is that the person comes in, the individual knows that he or she's going to have to show the advisor the progress that they've made. They may be in their 50s, they don't have anything really built up, or they made mistakes, that made moves and decisions that did not work for them, whatever it might be. They're just embarrassed that they don't, kind of back in the back of their mind, the fear is of being judged. And then you might make an appointment, then you battle, well, should I reschedule it? Maybe I should wait in a couple of weeks when I've got this done, or maybe I should address it when I've got this taken care of. And you go through all this, once again, procrastination, and it's one of those things where it's whatever event or scenario can prevent you from saying, I'm going to have to reschedule. It could be that you interview, and I've seen this happen, 10, maybe 12 financial advisors, and you still can't make up your mind what makes the most sense. And once again, it comes down to really two components. It could be it's the fear and the decision making that is connected to that fear. But make no bones about it. I mean, these are some tough decisions when it comes to money. You have the fear of risk, of will I lose my money? You have fear of looking at maybe looking at the wrong plan, choosing the wrong plan you don't fully understand. You attempt to learn, then you get to a point where you can't figure it out on your own. And it's one of those things where you put up this wall and you just kind of shut down. And here you find yourself maybe a year later still haven't done anything. Procrastination is a tough deal to get over. But there's some things you need to understand about fear, and I think that this is, I'm kind of giving you a preview to a few things that I've been writing about. And I think it helps that if you understand really how fear works. First of all, you've got to realize that, and this is either this is either like it or not like it, you've got to find somebody that on a level you can trust. It might be that you don't understand everything that you're being told. You kind of get you kind of get some understanding of how it works, but you just, at the end of the day, you're going to have to trust maybe a little bit more than you feel comfortable. And being a financial advisor for 30 years, I've seen this to where that you can get to a level of trust. And then one thing that I've watched and noticed that people do in many conversations is they get to the trust too fast, and they're trusting somebody based on various scenarios that maybe even may not be the best reason to trust. But that's one thing. Trust is an important aspect of the process, and something that you're going to have to do. The other thing that you need to know is that fear is very complex. I always think of it from the standpoint of layers of fear. You peel one layer back of fear, then you go to the next layer back, and then you go to the next layer back, and you're scared to death because you're just getting down to really what the big fear is. It's driving all the other ones. And the problems with fear is that not only is it complex, but it creates fearful thoughts. It creates fearful beliefs. And really, the book that I'm writing about, one of the focal points of it is beliefs, and the beliefs that we carry around that end up sabotaging any kind of success that we might have with money. To give you this example always comes out in my mind. This was a long time ago, and I had a doctor who was a client. I went to his office, and he wrote me a check, and he said, "Hey, I want you to put this in my account." He said, "But while you're at it, make sure that you call the Wall Street Journal and tell them that I've invested money, so everybody should pull out because the market's going to crash." And I, kind of laughed, but things like that, I don't even think you joke around about. And sure enough, the next day, deposited that check into his account, and the market just started falling. I don't know. It was something else. It started falling. Lost a lot of money over the next couple of months. I guess he was right about his belief. But I call them inaccurate beliefs, because self-limiting beliefs are nothing but big inaccuracies that you can take care of. I've come across something that Dr. Jim Denison, who I have great amounts of respect for him, and you just go and Google him. I can't think of the name of his website, but he writes every day, just great information, and it's Dr. Jim Denison. Anyway, I looked this up on a sermon that he had published probably 20 years ago, and it says and it's about fear. It says it has been noted that the Bible contains 366 fear nots. Its most frequent prohibition is not about any of the 7 deadly sins, pride, envy, gluttony, greed, lust, sloth, or wrath. It's about fear. One fear not for every day of the year, including a leap year. I have never heard that one before, like this one. Why? Because we need to fear not every day of the year, including a leap year, like that particular year was. So one of the things I think it's important is that, fear is going to be there. The skill set that you need to develop is how to manage fear, how to not let fear take control of your decision making, take control of your life. And if you really examine it, a lot of things that just don't work in your life point to a fear of some type. The second skill set that's really important, I think, to long-term, being successful long-term with money is become a better decision maker. And of course, I get tons of books from authors and PR people with the question of, can my client come on your program to talk about your book? And I've gotten tons of books through the years on how to be an effective decision maker. Books on this. And I've always thought to myself, these are books that everybody needs to read to bring up that skill set to become a better decision maker. And I've come up with 7 different things that you need to know about managing fear and becoming a great decision maker. The first one, and this is something that I definitely point out in my book, is that it's impossible at any given time to be focused on love or fear at the same time. Love being everything filters through God's love, what the Bible says, and then everything everything fears through fear. You can't fear and love something at the same time. You can only hold one emotion in your mind at any given time. And the more attention that you put on that you hold in your mind expands in your life. That's why daily Bible reading, daily prayer is so very important to keep everything balanced and everything in perspective. So that's the first one. Love and fear, very important concept to know. So if you're choosing fear over love, you got to know that's what you're doing. And I think it's the reality. And I was telling somebody the other day, I let something get me very, very angry last week, either last week or the week before. And I thought to myself, I know better, but I chose fear. And I chose everything goes along with fear in this particular situation, and I'll let anger take over, which was not good. I could have chose love, could have chose God on the other side of that equation, because after all, I did pray about it. That's the funny thing about praying about something. Where does it make sense? And I say this to myself, if this applies to you, so be it. What is it about praying about something and then getting mad when it doesn't work out like you want it to or on your time frame? It makes no sense, right? Second, develop your personal creed. A creed is a system of Christian beliefs, a faith. Love this word. And the way that as far as fear goes, there are tons of great verses in the Bible that directly speak to fear. And so what I've always suggested is find your verses. Find your verses that you can pray, meditate on, that you can always go to, you can pull out. They're with you at all times. They're on a piece of paper. They're on your phone. You can always go to those verses and get redirected, if you will, to the love and God side of the equation. My particular verses. The first one is Proverbs 4:23, which is all about guarding my beliefs. And it says, above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it. Above all else, guard your heart. In the days that the Bible was written, it's always been said that heart and mind can be interchangeable. And if you read it with mind, above all else, guard your mind, guard your beliefs, what you stand for everything you do flows from it. Everything does flow from your mind, from your beliefs. It's so very important to keep those focused on your personal relationship with Christ. That's the real deal. That's what is, I call it, on the right side of the equation. The next one is Deuteronomy 31:6, and I call this the bottom line. This is just, I read these verses, I think about these verses, and I think about why are we afraid? Why do we carry these fears around? It says, be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid or terrified because of them. For the Lord your God goes with you. He will never leave you nor forsake you. And, it's just so, I want to say the word simple. That's complex because you have the human nature tendency of self to go back to those fears and focus and let those fears expand versus looking at what Deuteronomy 31:6 says. And then Philippians 4:6, this just reminds me, hey, you gotta stay in prayer. Do not be anxious about anything, but in every situation, by prayer and petition, with thanksgiving, present your request to God. Do not be anxious about anything. The verse didn't say do not be anxious about money or investments. It says anything pretty much covers anything. But in every situation, which encompasses everything, by prayer and petition, with gratitude, with thanksgiving, present your requests to God. As I said, this is a verse that reminds me to take two steps back and make sure that I've prayed about this. And it's so easy for us to forget to pray. It makes no sense, but it's easy to forget. And unfortunately, I'm running out of time. But number 3, clearly just take on a piece of paper and write down the pros and cons of the decision you're trying to make. Try to identify the fears and address them. I think that's what's very important, is to say, okay, I have a tendency to do this, I have a tendency to do that. What can I do differently? How can I make a decision that would be in better interest for everybody than get this same result time and time again? Get a second party involved if you need to help you understand about the decision you're trying to make. And then most importantly, we've already talked about this, but it's worth saying again, you got to pray. We have to do our part. We have to do our homework. And what we're looking for is to God to bring us peace and especially the peace on His timing. There's 2 parts to that. And I think that we forget to do that. And it's a matter about praying and then doing our part, getting up the curve, understanding, doing some of these things that I have listed out. And then number 7, remember this: you won't eliminate every risk, making it a riskless decision. You can look through and try to make sure that you've handled every risk, but you won't create a riskless decision. There's always risk no matter what you do. Well, I hated that I had to go kind of quickly through the last part of that, but I think you got the idea. I'm going to write something on this and put it on the prudentmoney.com site as well, and I'll be doing that here in the next couple weeks or so. Hey, this is Bob Brooks. If you got a question for me, please go to the website at prudentmoney.com and send it in, because we are all out of time. Till we do meet again next time, keep the faith and have a great rest of the day.
That's all the time we have for today.
questions or comments for Bob, or to find out more great information like what you've just heard, visit www.prudentmoney.com. Be sure to join Bob Brooks again for the next edition of Prudent Money.
Prudent Money with Bob Brooks is sponsored by the Prudent Money Foundation on 91.3.
The word